Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm from Makoto Flow. My partner right there said it eloquently. You know, Yaron was spot on. It's 80% about people and 20% about, you know, tools and techniques. Yeah. So we profess that. These are our 5 basically revenue channels for our business and what we do. And we have over 68 joint venture partners around the world. And I'm glad to be collaborating with Patagonia and making this session available to you guys and gals. So what's very foundational in developing what we call daily shop floor management, or DSM, is having this mindset of true Kaizen. I've spoke about it in the previous, so I don't want to deviate from that because it's core. Number one is to have the right mindset. The way you think about Kaizen and the TPS methodologies and principles and practices is critical to driving the words that you speak and the actions that you embark upon then. Okay? Because when people question you why it works well or why it isn't working well, you should be able to articulate in a very positive way the value of doing this the true and honest way. And I think this is very, very important. And the old cliche is it's not what you said, but how you said it matters, right? So this is in the spirit of doing true Kaizen. Next slide, please. So for all those in attendance today, thank you very much. Again, we hope that you all put your on and that you mute yourselves so that we don't have any interference and things of that nature. But we are on the final sort of topic with regards to DSM, and that is the development of talent and your competencies, right? So that you have capable and competent and talent within your workforce. And we'll talk about that in more detail in just a moment. Next slide, please.
Appears to be a little delay on the line, but
yeah. So, you know, when we've gone through part of the DSM model there, the top 5 earlier, you know, they connected quality perspectives, they connected the actual production system perspective, and they connected also some of the maintenance or, you know, the ability to be technically efficient with the equipment. But today we're actually going to be emphasizing the 4th and final aspect to TPS, and that is talent development process, right? Or program. Yeah. So and so here we're going to be about sharpening the saws of those critical and specific internal competencies that you need in order to grow your business. And now, when I say that, I really want you to have this kind of perspective in mind. You got to where you are today because of all of the things you learned in the past. And you've adopted some things and threw out some things, right? So imagine now that technology is coming into play. That same kind of learning curve that you did 20 years ago is totally different now in today's market. Be able to adopt to that or adapt to it in our businesses and in the skill sets that we're actually seeking. And we're going to talk more about that today. Next slide, please. Obviously, you don't add where you feel is important, okay?
yes, of course, yes, go ahead.
So let me speak to the core of where this all comes from. The TDP model actually comes from the people development model, which you see there is part of the 4P structure of Toyota, okay? So in Toyota, they really work on problem solving, people, process, and philosophy. And it's usually bottom up, not top down. And it also links to 2 of the 14, you know, management principles of the Toyota way. Number 9 being growing leaders within the organization, and number 10 is, you know, developing exceptional people. In fact, if you ever listen to some of the, you know, the senseis or the older people within Toyota, they were always talking about people are your competitive advantage, not the technology you bring in. Technology is just one aspect of it, but technology can help you go somewhere, but it'll never take you to the next realm. Only people will do that. Yeah, fantastic. So let's move to the next slide, please. So when we talk about how the Japanese do it, I really want to break this down because the true Kaizen mindset says, how do leaders in Japan get people to do Kaizen? Well, every culture has its uniquenesses. But what I want to describe to you is how the approach of a leader is in Japan in three basic focuses. Okay. And when you really think about the methodology of Kaizen, it's embedded in this kind of thinking. So the first step is to develop that intellectual or that logical kind of approach. So you have to have things that allow you to be consistent, insistent, and persistent with the type of focus you're working on. Yeah. And it's got to be logical so people can easily adopt to it. So you got to be smart about that, right? And that in Japanese terms is called chiku, right? So chiku. And that focus allows you to get to the next level of focus, which is tokuiku, which emphasizes, don't worry about the word so much, but I want you to know the meaning behind it. It emphasizes the inclusiveness and the interpersonal mindset that you must have in order to drive a person or a group of people forward. And that rational mindset builds on that, right? So that logical kind of thought process builds on that. But you got to be able to share the benefits, that how it can be, connected to the scale of what you're about to embark upon. So many of you know about, like, for example, the gentleman who just momentarily said he was doing training. You got to do a charter for that. That's actually trying to quantify the actual amount of effort that's going to be needed for where you're moving forward. And that helps you with this kind of philosophy. But also, you need to realize that this kind of thinking, it means that you as a leader need to know what is good for the business. Just because somebody says do something in the business doesn't mean you actually go and do it. And so sometimes you have to stand against the current, against the tide, in order to get your point addressed so that you know it's the right thing for the business and the people. Let me give you a great example of this. Somebody in IT decides to get a new, type of software system in place. They didn't ask anybody. They just thought in their best interest, this is the best way to do it. Whereas everybody who uses it is now sort of comfortable in applying what they currently have. And now they've got to transition to something new. If you don't do this kind of interpersonal inclusiveness, you lose that, right? So it's like the 20-60-20 rule, right? And then the third focus, which these two lead to, is called the taiku, right? This is the emotional and physical strength that you need in the mind. And it's amazing that everywhere I go, people always ask, "DJ, you got so much energy." It's because I started here in the morning. I said, I'm bringing it. The moment I walk in, the light comes on, the energy's there, I'm going to have it. And this is about your own willpower. It's about you mastering you as a leader so that others can feel that positive energy and others can embark upon that energy and helping them to do the right things as well. Okay. However, there is one key piece to Taiku, and that is the Hansei, the reflection. What went well and what can we do even better? Those two phrases, what went well and what can we do even better, are fundamental for any leader on any given day or any given week. And if you constantly do your personal reflection as well as a team reflection kind of evolution, you'll be able to drive talent the way you want it to. Yeah. And sort of that's the mindset here in Japan. Now, what I've tried to do is transcend that same type of mindset in different cultures, whether it be in the Malay culture, the Chinese culture, the American culture, the South American cultures, right? They all have this uniqueness. And so what you got to do is just twist it. Yeah, even the Dutch culture. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to twist it a little bit so that they know it can fit them. It's not a Japanese thing. So if I was Japanese words out and changed them with your kind of words in the Netherlands, it would hit home. Yeah, it would hit home. And I like somebody who mentioned right there European culture. Yeah, but remember, the Germans are totally different than the French or the Spanish or the Italians, right? I mean, they all look at the world slightly different. And so it's got to be embarked upon the culture of your business as well as the culture of your society that you're in. But good point. Good point. Next slide, please. And as we transition to this next slide, myself, Jeroen, Bart, and Boudewijn, we all worked at a Dutch company. And in working in Groningen, that really Dutch deep voice, there were some struggles with understanding how to get something done in their culture. And we had to really take our time to listen in order to get them to have that empathy and commitment to moving forward. Yeah. So once you do have those three kinds of intrinsic mentalities and mindset, then you can embark upon the tactical piece, right? Where you're doing job skill training, where you're doing process improvement, where you're actually creating the right values for your team and the organization. Yeah. And I really want this to hit home with you because there are three distinct things that every leader needs to do. Now, every leader cannot do all of them at the same time, but they should find ways of incorporating them. One is they should be the ones teaching their teams. It shouldn't be an HR group. It shouldn't be some isolated organization that comes in just to give you 4 hours or 40 hours worth of training. The people that are on the shop floor, because these are the things that we're talking about. We're not talking about soft skills. We're talking about hard technical skills. So if you're a painter, it should come from a really good painter from your team. Doesn't need to come from the best painter in the plant. It should come from the best painter on your team. Yeah. And the second thing is the coaching. Teach them what they need to know in a way that they understand, and then coach them through the next, period of time. What a lot of people don't understand about Toyota is that they give you 90 seconds worth of work at first. And you have to master that 90 seconds of work in 30 days. Yeah. And if you haven't learned that 90-second period of work, they won't give you another 90 seconds. Eventually, you want to get another 180. So you want to have 90 seconds so that you can be flexible in doing other jobs. But that first 90 seconds is imperative that you learn how to do it just as if you were an expert there for 10 years or 5 years. Yeah. And that happens through coaching. And then the final piece, the mentoring piece that I'd like to just mention is, and there's not a lot of this that occurs in private organizations or even public organizations in the industry, but this does happen a lot with individuals who are seeking mentorship. Yeah. But in every company, if there's a competency that you are just not good at, and it has nothing to do with your current job, but you want to learn it, that's where you go seek a mentor. Yeah. I have 4 myself. I'm sure the team at Patagonia, they have their own as well. The point being is mentorship is meant to help you personally achieve a professional thing over a long period of time. Yeah. And everybody needs that. What I love about Toyota is that after you've spent your first 6 months in Toyota, you sit down with someone and they ask you about your 3, 5 year, 10-year kind of goals. They want to use the job to help you achieve those 3, 5, 10-year goals. So you have this really robust one-on-one session with your team leader, group leader, wherever you are in the hierarchy of change, to figure out how things are going. And I can remember one story that I like to relay here on the mentoring side, where this one person who happened to be working in the UK sat down on his annual one, and they asked him about what's your 3 or 5 year kind of purpose that you would like to achieve. And he was like, you know what? Personally, it has nothing to do with work, but I really want to bicycle all over Europe. I want to start in Portugal and just go all the way over to Germany, and then from Germany go on down and come back up through Spain and all those countries. And he's like, wow. And he goes, yeah, and I'd like to take 4 months off of work to do that. So from that comment, they sat down and said, okay, I think we can help you with that if we work in a 2-year plan for you to do this. So they instantly started saying, this is what we can do. In 2 years, we can give you 4 months off. You don't lose your job, but you can go out and you can go do these things. And I think that's a very powerful lesson that a lot of people look forward to. Yeah. Okay. Any insights, Jerome?
No, totally agree. When you project that on the Dutch kind of mentality or the Dutch approach, then I will give you an example later. Then the approach is more short term. If we hire people, if we talk to people, if we want to educate, it's more about doing this today and mastering, let's say, it for a year. But we hardly look any further. At least that's our experience with our clients when they talk with HR people. It's always about getting a job done, but never looking forward to, let's say, let's look 5 years further. Well, one thing is for sure, the people will probably live 5 years longer, will work for you, hopefully 5 years longer, maybe even 10 years. So why not addressing that and discussing it and see if you can indeed use the definitions on the right there with training, coaching, mentoring to define the whole flow of development throughout the years. And that is an interesting perspective that you can learn in this way from Toyota. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that before we go to the next slide, is that, I visited the Daihatsu Toyota plant in Kyushu, right? It's in Oita. And when I visited that plant, there's a technical institute next to it. And they took us there to show us all these unique kind of, ergonomical kind of training activities, whether it be painting or whether it be, safety issues. But before they ever went into that kind of technical kind of aspect of things, they showed us continuums. If you happen to be an industrial engineer, they showed you a continuum for 20 years for an industrial engineer. If you happen to be, and that goes the same for mechanical, process, technical, whatever you might be. But let's go then onto the quality side. You also had quality type of people that you would have a 20-year program for. HR, how to go through HR for 20 years. I mean, they had everything aligned so that you could see your progressive opportunities. If you took these courses, you would get to this level. You would take these courses, you get to this level. So it was always about developing of the talent and the people. And I think that's a very powerful kind of insight to share today. Next slide, please. I think the biggest challenge we have, though, everyone, is that we have to get away from the old way of what we do, right? So the traditional ways of teaching people, whether it be the buddy system. Hey, DJ, welcome to our company. This is John. He's going to take you around for 2 weeks, and you get to learn how John does it. Well, John's going to pull DJ to the side and say, this company sucks, and I hate working here, and this is what I can. So it's very challenging to overcome that kind of system. And he's going to tell me the way he wants it done, not necessarily the way company originally taught others to do it. But then you can see all these other things that are listed on here. And I just want to touch on the centralized training aspect of them. Anytime you have an organization that has centralized training, know that they're already going in the wrong direction for the value of transformation optimization initiative, because they're gonna take it on as we have funds for these things, and the majority of people need this, this, and this, and therefore they're going to fund that. So that's why it's inherent within Toyota. They emphasize the value of leaders teaching the employees. Everybody gets taught from the leader's perspective. Yeah. And sure, you still have to go do some of these other soft skill type of lectures, like let's say you just got into a leadership role, you got to go to a leadership workshop. Okay, I get that. But you could also learn from other leaders in that same discipline. Yeah. But the worst one is not to have any training at all. And there are many companies, about 82% from my experience over the 20 years that I've been documenting companies, that actually don't provide any training. Once you walk in the door, you get your initial training, you don't get any more until you depart. Yeah, pretty much. And that's bad. So we've got to get over that. That's a huge challenge. So I think we really need to consider that.
DJ, if I can add to that, I'm really excited about the last one. If you talk about no training, we have exactly the same experience with our customers, that there's no training at all sometimes. Or, and that's really a trap, they start doing training when it seems to be necessary. Well, that's way too late. You have to be in advance. You can't wait till something goes wrong, or somebody is stressed, or somebody is incapable, or a department is not functioning well. And then the budget comes out to organize quickly a training. And then the people are literally here in Holland on the phone here. Normally it's HR. Yeah, we need a training on leadership for our team leaders. Yeah, and then we ask why? Yeah, because things are not going well. Well, you should have called 3 years ago. Then we can make a plan, and then we can transform it step by step. So doing training, even when you're too late, that's really even maybe worse than no training at all. Well, exaggeration.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because a real world experience when I was working in China, and I was working for a big European company in China. They got me on the phone real quick and was like, DJ, can you go to Hubei, China? And I was like, when? In 2 weeks. I was like, for what? And they were like, for your team leader, group leader training. It's a 2-week intensive kind of training. And we were like, well, I thought they already had that. No, the HR team got together and said they could get a lean leadership training course for 2 days, bring it in-house, and it will meet the criteria. It doesn't, because it doesn't change your mindset. It doesn't change your behaviors. It just gives you that philosophy, that theory, and a couple of games to let you get into it. That's not what we're talking about. When we talk about communication cells, that means we go build a communication cell. When we talk about doing, problems, that means we go actually solve a problem. And we take you through every single one of the steps. So the handhold, the theory is 20 minutes, but the hand holding is 2 to 5 hours, right? So it's about really getting ingrained and getting your hands dirty. So I think that's a very important point as well. All right, next slide, please. So what do we need to do in order to develop our talent? Well, I think first of all, for everyone who's listening today, it's important that you understand that you have to reskill. With the way things are going today, with the pandemic that just happened, you might want to call it fake-demic. I don't care what you like, but the point is, it occurred. We were shut down for a couple of years. The skills needed to work from home compared to work inside of a business, there are similarities, but there are big-time differences too. And now with the technology ramping up, especially with AI and Industry 4.0, we need to reassess how things are happening. So the first thing you need to do is rapidly ID, your need to establish a good understanding of what your core skill sets are going to be. And then you need to build that kind of, no regrets. We will always give you these 5, 6 core skills. And then as you grow in the organization, we'll give these follow on, 4 to 7 skills, whatever it might be. But you need to know what is strategic to your business and critical to your business. And therefore, you can make those determinations a little bit better. Once that's done, you got to action it. You got to get it into play. You got to start coaching it. You got to be going to Gemba at least 5 times a day if you're a leader, just to make sure things are operating the way they are. And also, if the skill sets are being applied, there should be results. There should be documentation of the impact of those results. So training without an impact means you just sat in a room. Yeah. And my professor, Professor Dr. Bear, he said to me, he goes, educating of the mind and gaining of the degree is 2 different things. And it's so true. You can get the degree, but that doesn't mean you're better off because of it. Doesn't mean you know more than someone else. Until you actually have that practical application, you really need to educate your mind. Yeah. And then the last thing is really invest in mentoring your team. Each formal mentorship program inside your company or in your community, at least start doing it for yourself and your team. You can become a mentor to people and you can offer it up. Doesn't mean people will take you on it, at least offer it up because everybody needs it, myself included. I needed it from many different resources. Today, from a technology perspective, from the past, from a TPS perspective, right? So I think we all can benefit from harnessing these new skills that we gotta sort of build resilience around. Yeah. Next slide, please. So what does that really mean? Well, I'm gonna profess something. When we do a workshop called TLGL or Gemba Core, as well as what we call our Senior Executive Leadership Workshop, we focus on what is called the 2 Ks and 3 Ss, and you can see them here on screen. Knowledge of work, knowledge of responsibility, skill in instructing, skill in innovation and improvement, and skill in leading. There's a lot of things that I could teach around each one of those, with the exception of the knowledge of the work. That should be something that you have. You are the resident knowledge expert. Yeah. So what we try to do is hit the other, in 3 S's, right? And the whole goal with the 1K and 3 S's is that you're building the capability to sustain whatever initiative you're going into. And so a long time ago, I heard a quote said, managers fix, leaders grow. And then I just added to that quote, right? Managers fix things and are constantly working in operating within the system, right? On the other hand, leaders grow things and are focused on improving that system. So when they get in, they have a system that they've been dealt with, and they want to make that system even better. And that also means people. And you need to grow people. You can't just expect it from them. You've got to challenge them in ways where they really are excited about doing things. And so the principle behind Kaizen and behind, the philosophy of improvement is no involvement, no commitment, right? So you got to get them involved, and they will be committed to doing different things. But let me hit to this skill of instructing very specifically in the next slide here, please. So what Toyota has done over the years is they have invested in TWI. So they learned all the 4 modules of TWI, which include basically job safety, job methods, job relations, and job instructions. And what Toyota has done is adopted the Deming methodologies to incorporate the safety, the methods, and the relationships, right? The relations. And wholeheartedly bought into the method of job instruction. So even though it was developed in 1944 during World War II to train all the women that came into the workforce that had no technical expertise, but were able to use their hands, it has now been morphed and developed into something very practicable for anybody to lead into. And so there's a point of developing your supervisors so that you have less scrap, less rework, fewer accidents, and of course, less damage to all of your equipment that you have in your facilities. But the key to TWI is getting people ready to instruct, getting yourself ready to instruct so that you're well prepared to be able to relay the way that people.
Oops, sorry.
Why don't we mute those guys? Yeah, why don't we mute everyone? There you go. Thank you. So the first step of getting yourself or getting ready to instruct really means knowing what kind of skills are needed. So if I happen to be working on trim in a truck company or in an automotive company, I need to know what trim is, how the best way to handle it, and so on. And I need to know that time duration that I can give to educating my members. And so typically TWI methods happen within 30 to 90 minute time frames. They're very short, very concise, and they give you a little bit of insight on how to do something. And then you go through a process that allows you to instruct them. And both of them are 4 steps. Yeah, both of them are 4 steps, but they can teach you in those 4 steps through, not just illustrating and showing and telling, but also then by asking good questions on how everything is going to come about. Now, let me give you an example of this. I'm an avid golfer, and there's a lot of people that come to the golf course. I never try to instruct them on the golf course, but people always ask me, hey, DJ, I saw how you shot today. Could you give me one bit of advice? And I was like, yeah, but there's 4. Which one do you want? And they were like, well, the best out of the 4. I said, well, then I'll go with the first one. And that is, your stance is very important. And you get your stance right. Let me demonstrate. So now I tell them first, then I show them, and then I illustrate what the differences of that stance are. That's all I do. I don't ask any questions or anything, right? But I'm using TWI in my own, enjoyment of playing golf when people ask me for my opinion. It's a very practical way of doing it. It's very clear, and of course, it really helps out on people understanding. And the key to TWI and the JI particular module is telling you, what are the major steps, what are the key points in doing that, and what are the reasons why. And I think when you understand that when somebody asks you a question and you can answer it, the why, they buy in so quickly. Usually people train others and say, do it my way, show it that you can do it, and then I'll tell you why. Now, you should be able to share that up front. Yeah. This is not like some sort of telling session. It's more of a growing session, a nurturing session, like the previous slide shared with the growing of vegetables. Okay, next slide. So I want to go back to, while I'm waiting for that slide, I'm going to go back to what I told you earlier, which was the 90 seconds they train in Toyota for somebody working on the line, because the line basically works at about 90 something seconds to tack. The cycle time to tack is about 90 seconds. Yeah. So you might have 4 tasks in that, you might have 8 tasks in that, you might have 2 tasks, but it will roll up into a 90-second kind of window. Once that's done, once you've trained them, what you do is you create what is called an OPL, or a 1-point lesson. So the trainer gets themselves ready to instruct by creating what we call a job breakdown, which tells you what are the major steps, the reason, the major steps, the key points, and the reasons why. And that is for the instructor to be able to clearly articulate to the learner what they're engaging in. But when the teacher is not around and the learner wants to revisit it, they can always go back to one of these, what is called a 1-point lesson. It's not only for training and knowledge, but it's also for other things like safety and quality. You want to check on something, right? And so I gave you 2 examples here for somebody who's doing a presentation, how to use the remote control. For somebody who's trying to understand what are the difference between cycle, tact, process, and lead times. This is a great example. They can go to it, they can reflect on it, and then they're able then to say, okay, I get it. Now I know what I need to do. It's just very important to create things that are job related so that they share the right information in the right amount, right? Not too much, not too little, and that it helps everyone on the team improve. Because the weakest link is the person who always needs help, and that person's skill needs to be developed. And you might need to take more time with that. That's okay. You can do that. So make sure you do your job instruction sheets and you do it well for that 30 to 90 minutes of getting a point across, and then the OPLs to back it up. Yeah. Next. So I've said a lot today, but I want to leave you with some of the 10 precepts of Taiichi Ohno. And I love what he says on step number 3, or if you may, number 3 of the precepts, where he says the workplace is a teacher. You can find answers only in the workplace. So we're not talking about all these soft skill things. We're talking all about these technical things that you need to be able to do good while you're at there, whether it be welding or whether it be some sort of other kind of grabbing and handling or inspecting kind of methodology. You need to be able to explain it very clearly and visualize it at the Gemba. And that is a quality that takes time to do, and it takes a lot of observation so that the leader can really get the points across, and developing that talent so that you can have better competencies at the workplace. Yeah. So if you don't, why don't you take the next slide?
Yes. Thank you, DJ. Appreciate it a lot. What an excellent presentation of all the necessary items and methodologies, how to grow people, how to train people, how to develop. It's quite a complex presentation with all sorts of impacts and details, but very well expressed. So appreciate that very much. Obviously, we will share the slides with the audience after this broadcast, so you can easily look back. So let me try to transfer kind of everything DJ just explains into a practical example with a customer of ours where we had set up a training and learning program. I would like to emphasize that this is an example. There are many ways to set up such a learning process and learning structure. It depends on the type of company, it depends on the size, it depends on the complexity, it depends on the branch. So don't take it for granted that this example that I'm going to show you is now the blueprint of all companies. That's not true. You always have to adapt and see what for your own vision and mission is the right way to do it. Anyhow, I hope to give you a brief example of how we did it in a Dutch environment, in a Dutch organization. So you see here some pictures of that company, some machinery, just to give you a brief expression. It produces bottles, as you can see on below. With oil products, and the oil needs to go into these bottles. The bottles need to be stickered, and they have machines going around. You need some flask needs to be closed. So all these kind of things. They have a variety of bottles to fill. So there's a lot of turnover time. It's pretty technical, this environment. However, it seems very technical or high tech from these pictures. The actual work was performed by let's put it, not very high educated persons. A lot of foreigners working here, low education, but very kind people, very interesting in technology and in the project. But you don't need a very high skilled level of education to work here as an operator. So that's a kind of the background of the whole situation. So this organization struggled with a high number of turnarounds. So people came in, worked for a short while and left again because they were not happy. They struggled with their work. They struggled with the leadership style. The culture was not as it should be. Let's put it that way. Then you understand in between the lines what I mean. It was also an organization in a kind of storm of developments in the branch and in the corporate part of this organization. So there was a lot going on. So, and then the phone rings, as I explained before, and they said, Patagonia, please help us out. We need a program to educate, to train our employees and to keep them for a longer period. So, all right, we went in there, investigated everything, and I will now kind of present you the end result of this particular situation. So if you go to the next slide, this is kind of what we produced. At least that's the image of it. There's a lot more to it, which it's a lack of time. If you want to know more, then please call us. I'm happy to share it with you. But this is the kind of program that we designed for this particular situation. So one of the key things was, as I mentioned before, is when somebody solid for a position with this company, we immediately gave a perspective for the future. So first we built a perspective for the coming years, what is to be expected or what can be your growth path, if you like, if you want, if you're looking for a challenge. So that is immediately a thing to remember. I assume that the participants here in this video conference are kind of like academic educated or highly educated. Otherwise you wouldn't be here listening to these lean stories. Here we're talking about people with limited, let's say, brain power or not educated on a very high or university advanced level, but good and happy and fine people. Just we as organizers need to transfer ourselves in the situation of an operator. So when you hire an operator, a welder or something else, will that person be a welder for the rest of his life? Will he be happy for the rest of his life? Will he be challenged for the rest of his life? We as academics can learn more, but if you are standing in a factory day in, day out, from 7 in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, doing the same type of work, day in, day out, that's an entirely different perspective. And we should be aware of that is a different world for those persons. So how do we create an environment, a perspective for the workers in a factory? Well, this is one way of doing it. So we defined 4 levels. First level of trainee, second level of production employee, then a production operator, and then a first operator. Don't mind the words, you can change those words however you like, but we gave them this perspective. So when the job interview was there, you were told you start as a trainee. And in this particular organization, the organization couldn't take the risk to set an untrained employee at one of those machines. So there was a very strict rule, not trained, not examined, you can't pass the red dotted line. Only when you're skilled and you have done your exam and you have proven to master certain working instruction, certain procedure, then you are able to operate a standard operating procedure. So that's the meaning of that red dotted line. So that means prior to that red dotted line, we have set up a complete training program, helping the people get into a certain level so that they could operate the machines. The perspective that we gave was that if you are able to do that, you are motivated to a production employee, and you can do only the standard operating procedures that you're trained for. Nothing else, nothing more, just master those standard operating procedures. And we have made a complete schedule of all the standard operating procedures that were applicable for this organization. So we gave them a perspective that they could learn week after week, month after month, going forward with all those standard operating procedures. So even this second level, as you may call it, they had a perspective of 1 or 2 years to master all those procedures. In the end, when you master all those procedures, then you're promoted to production operator. And you are able to independently, as an individual, as a professional, to operate a complete line, production line. And even when you go further, even if you have mastered 1 or 2 production lines, you can become a first operator, where you can even do more than just the operating procedures. But that's the kind of perspective that what we gave them. And as you can see in the green cloud above, it was not only about the standard operating procedure, not at all. It's including understanding what the customer needs are. It's including how you improve, how you work in an improvement team, how you do teamwork, how you cooperate with each other. It's including safety and quality and maintenance and all these kind of topics. So that was all included in every step that you see here. So that gives such a kind of structure, gives people a pleasant idea of, I can move forward for the next years. If this happens is another story, but at least you give the perspective. So let's go to the next slide. Then you can see that if you want to train people, this as DJ presented before, there's a variety of learning processes. So some people just listen to a trainer. Let's say a trainer explains the procedure that you see there on the right. They listen to it and at least they understand it. They know what the meaning is. However, there are also people that want to sit silently reading it and mastering it by just reading it and rehearsing it. It's also a learning process that you go into practice, into the factory, and you observe somebody else doing it. So we can go on like this. So you see a variety of ways how to learn, how to master a certain standard operating procedure. So we have to set up a learning system, not from our academic kind of thinking, but we have to set it up from the perspective of the operator who needs to operate the machines. So that's what we have set up in a complete system. So, and don't forget it, when you go to the right side, very important, it's not only about the operating procedure, it's also about understanding what customers need. If you operate a machine and you saw these bottles coming by and there's a sticker on the bottle, is the customer happy when the sticker is a little bit off or a little bit fake or a little bit damaged? Or is that okay? Is that not okay? So the operators need to understand that. And we, in the trainings, we normally as management, we train them the customer demands, but don't forget then that we also have to train them to reject a product. So they can understand the product is off, it's not according to customer requirements. But the next step is to say, dear team leader, this product is off. So you have to step forward as an operator and say, this is a fault. Well, think for yourself in your own organization, how many operators will do that? Or will they just continue working and hope nobody sees it? Don't answer that question. So there's more to it than just operating the machines. Sorry?
True mindset issue, absolutely.
Thank you. So, and that's the same with safety. I mean, you can have perfect customer required products, but if we go home with a headache or with a scratch or something like that, then it's still not good. So there's more to it than just operating the machines. So we learn them also concentration, we learn them discipline, and so on. So next slide, please. Then you have to design a complete program. Well, that's what you see here. And you see here a program in two phases. These operators first went a theoretical program, and when they passed that, then they went into the practical program. The theoretical program is understanding what the operating procedure is about, and you can see a lot of steps in that. You see in the first, you get an introduction of what the program is about. You learn the objectives, you learn the customer requirements. Let's first start there before we start with the operating procedure. You get the expectations from the organization, what is good, what is not good, what is the value, and so on and so forth. What is a learning process? People do not know what a learning process is. Help them with it. They do not know what safety is. If you are an applicant and you go to this factory for the first time, you have no sense of what the safety level is in this organization, what's important, what's not important. So you have to train them on safety, on quality, and so on. Even then, we go further to the standard operating procedures. And then point 3 is interesting. Then we take our safety jacket on, we learn them to wear the safety materials, just the jackets and the gloves and so on. And then we go with those safety jackets on into the factory. So as from the start, you include in the whole learning system to be aware of safety, to be aware of the environment, to be aware of the rules in the organization. So they take their safety jacket, the writing material, a printed standard operating procedure, and then they're going to observe. And look what we ask them to observe first. Register quality deviations. Register incorrect safety behavior. So all these kind of things are included in the learning program of standard operating procedures. Then we go back, we evaluate it, study the SOP again, and then we go to an exam. Well, kind of like the same situation is for the practical setup. I just want to emphasize that it's not only about the operating procedure, but it's included with all other kind of observations. So that means that if you start as an employee over there, you immediately feel valuable. You are there, you may join, your observations are valuable, you have to share your observations with the organization, so we can learn continuously. So, I talked a lot as well, so next slide, please. Yes, that was the last one. Just a very brief example of a kind of learning system. You can have it if you like, just share it with us. And now we go to the question and answer package. Please switch on your microphone, switch on your video, and let's have a meeting and have questions and share experiences about this subject. So, who wants to go first?
So for those that are new here, yeah, well, before we go, for those that are new here, the way this is done is we do not accept any written questions. Yeah. So the only way you can ask your question is by clicking the raise your hand button that's on the bottom of the screen. And when you raise your hand button, you will go to the front of the line. And whoever's second will be number 2, number 3. So we can just go right down the line and we never miss anybody. Okay. So in doing so, we'll take your questions in stride and be able to answer it. Yes, we went a little bit longer today, but there's a reason for that. Out of the 6 core activities, this is the activity you will spend the most time on, because you have to get this right in order for the other 5 to work effectively. I don't care if it's doing, or if you're standing in a circle, or whether you're trying to solve a problem, you got to get the learning of that evolution correct. Yeah. And so I was glad that Jeroen spent the time to say this was his journey with just one company. It needs to happen. It needs to be planned. It doesn't need the same for every company, but it does have to be investment of time. So whoever has a question, raise your hands, and by all means, we'll take them.
Erik.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
I have a question about the time.
You want to learn something to the people on the floor, If you are a consultant or you are coming from outside and you help them, is there also from their side also a kind of how you call it, time pressure? I want only to give this kind of money to you to get it done, and that's it. Or do you have how do you do that? How can you say we want more time? You have to pay more, or that kind of paradigm. How do you how do you do that? How to get this thing ready for them that it works? Not only we have the training and it is okay, but because that is always kind of question.
You want to take it first, DJ?
Yeah. Hey, Erik, great question. Thanks for asking it. First of all, the reason I put the challenges of getting away from traditional training is because of what your question's about. You know, I'm telling you at this point in juncture of my life, if I can go into an organization for 4 hours and give them the results, I do that. I don't try to make it a week or 6 months or 10 years, but it's critical to understand something about creating competency. And competency, remember I told you about breaking down the work? So you preparing yourself through the job breakdown sheet. If there are 13 sequential activities and it takes me 2 hours to go through 13 of those, how much is retained? Very little. So the goal is maybe show the first 3. So only talk about the first 3, get them to that level, let them see it. And then that might take you, 20, 30 minutes. And that's okay. The next day you come back and you give them, remember 1, 2, and 3? Share it with me. Now I'm going to show you 4, 5, and 6. You have to break it down for the learner. Okay. Everybody, as what Jeroen was saying, does not learn the same way. To your point of if a company wants me to give this learning, if it's a classroom environment, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about team leader, group leader, supervisor, abilities to teach.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, if a company wants to pay somebody to teach your team leaders, group leaders, and supervisors to teach, yes, that might be a week long, but that's not the end of the result. The result should be those people actively doing it on day 1, on day 2, on day 3 of that 5-day period.
Yes.
So there should be result. And if there isn't, then you're just paying for training.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So you're not educating the mind, you're gaining a certificate.
Well expressed. Thank you, DJ. Erik, when you're in there for the money, don't do it.
I know.
It's kind of it's the 14th of December. We're close to Christmas. So let's bring a Christmas message across. You need to love the people. You need to be, your attention needs to be with the people. And if you do that, you will work with the people and you see their progress. So what we normally do is set the goals first. What needs to be achieved in, I don't know, a month, 3 months, 2 years, 5 years.
Okay.
And then we can quite accurately design the steps needed for the whole program, because you know by experience all the steps that DJ explained, how long it will take and what effort it will be. So you can quite accurately define that. So you define that first, then you operate it, you execute it, and step by step you see if there's progress, yes or no, and how the progress is, in what form. So based on the progress that you observe, you give straight feedback to the management as well. Like, we did this for this period, and this is now the result. Go and check it in the factory. You can see it. I mean, it's not an academic result. No, you can see it in the factory, how the people work, what they do, how they cooperate, Yeah. So it's not a fantasy of mine that I report what they've done. No, it's really visible on the shop floor. So they can check themselves. And if they are happy, then we continue. And if we're not happy, we stop. That's simple as that. We are in there for the people.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I
Thank you.
can I add one more point to that?
Yeah, DJ. So
Hey, Eric, you
Yeah.
know, I've been asked by companies to come in and give a week's worth of training on, let's say, the foundations of Lean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I do that, and I say, are you sure that's what you want from me? You want me to come in there and just give a workshop for 4 days or 2 days, whatever it might be.
Okay.
And that's all you want from me? And they're like, yes. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, desired outcome with it, I want it to be clear. This is what you want from that workshop. And then what I do is I create for them actions that they must take in order to achieve from the learning that I provided. They want to be able to do it on their own then. They just want to pay you for that one time, get you in, get you out type of deal. I've seen that before. But I make sure that they have some sort of plan that we've agreed to, that they now are responsible for the results of this training, not the information I relayed, not the practices they went through, not the application that we did during the workshop, but the real impact. Yeah. And I think that is something you could do for your company. Yeah.
That is right.
in addition to that,
For any consultant that comes in.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we like very much the approach of permanent education. Permanent education is a program we designed some years ago. It's kind of like doctors and lawyers and so on also go through, but then for the operational level or the team leader level. And that gives time and space and peace. So if you can have an agreement with the directors, like I don't want to do it the 10 days in 1 month, but give me the 10 days over a year or over 2 years. Because it's always about budget, of course.
Yeah.
And then you can spread out it over a certain period, and then you can take the time it takes to learn. And that is very important, because you don't want to put the people in the stress of, I have to learn this next week. I mean, they haven't learned anything for years. And now suddenly managers expects them to be, I don't know, brilliant leaders on the shop floor. Well, it won't work. Take your time.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much.
Very well.
Excellent.
Ralf.
Arigato.
Hey guys.
Hi, Ralf. Good morning.
Schmackelijk.
Thanks. Goedemorgen. Hey, I have a few notes. One of the things at the very start of this session, I think it's a very important thing to have noted. Most businesses have a 3 to 5 year plan. And I think one of the critical things to keep people involved and committed is to have an individual 3 to 5 years plan as well for them. So I think that's a very a good way to keep people on board and involved with the company. So one of the other things I took away is the Daiichi Ohno's third concept, third precept. The workplace is a teacher, and that's, I think, critical in what I'm seeing today on the shop floor as well. We see that leaders there, in order to teach, also need to stop and observe to see how people interact with the process and what they should be coaching as well. At the moment, that's my biggest challenge here in the company. So to make sure that those people learn to see how their people are being trained and if they follow the standards there. What's your experience on that, on coaching those leaders?
Coaching the team leaders.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, and whatever level it is, when you have a leader that comes in and they have this level of expectation of what the learning is going to be, it's always important to create that Gemba time. Yeah. So I think you hit it on the nail, what you were saying, Ralf, and the ability that you have to be able to be there to see things. Yeah. But also the team leaders need to know that they're being held accountable to that level. A lot of times leaders don't, in a week, they might go to the Gemba, or they'll walk in, at 7 o'clock in the morning, they'll walk the whole shop floor and they say, yep, I was there. But nobody was there. They didn't start till 8, right? So They just wanted to see how all the mess was. But the reality is an involved leader, somebody who is truly behind the purpose and principles and practices of TPS, means that they're constantly at the Gemba. Yes, that you have to do your meeting. I get it. But when you get done with your meeting, and sometimes even the meeting can go to the Gemba. Yeah. So there's always opportunities to do that. The second thing is, I think when you focus in on, if I happen to be an internal consultant for the company driving something, you have to be at multiple places. You can't. You have to have other leaders supporting you and going to those multiple locations so that can get happening. Yeah. So that everybody sees a leader every single day at certain variable times. Yeah. And that's what creates what you would call common competency, not immediate competency. And what is the difference between common competency and immediate competency? Common competency is, this is the way I'm doing it to the standard, always. I'm just doing it this way. So who's ever watching, I don't care. But immediate competency is, oh, here comes the leader. Poop, that goes in the trash can. And you start doing exactly the way they want you to do it until they're gone. And then you bring whatever you put in the trash can back out and you keep going. So it's about getting people to be capable and competent and not worrying about who's watching. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned in different cultures, is that people, when they're being watched, they're sensitive about it. And in the reality, when you're watching somebody, you should go up to them and say, man, you do that really well. I like the way, I could never do that. You're fantastic. And then when they're doing it wrong, you can ask them a question. Hey, what if you did it another way? What would be the impact? Just to get their opinion to see if it is resonating, they're doing it wrong. Not asking them why, but sort of framing it a little. So I think being there is very, very important. And like Taiichi Ohno would say, how many times do you wash your hands a day? 4 or 5 times? You're a good leader. Yeah. Good. You want to add?
Yes.
You know.
Yes, please. Yeah, I will give you an example, Ralf. An example that happens kind of in every factory, where the team leader is a very experienced operator, and after 10, 20 years, you become a team leader and you're the best of the rest. Then they first go to the Gemba and they tell the operator, hey, you should do that in this way. So they tell them how to do the work. And then they have learned some kind of coaching or leadership course. And then they go to the same Gemba, and then they turn the same sentence in a question. Did you think about doing it that way? So it's a question, but still a demand. So, and that mentality has to be changed. So we take them away and say, well, stop telling them what to do. Tell them about the customer demands. And then ask them the question, how can you meet the customer demands? So without delivering your own opinion. So the opinion of the team leader regarding how to do the work can be removed. And they have to learn to talk about customers, about safety, about cycle times, about all these kind of things. And that's what they find normally very hard, because they are very experienced, very kind and good operators that have done that work for many years. And now we expect from them an entirely different approach, which requires different competences. So that's where we coach team leaders and also managers a lot on bringing the focus to customer demands, to flexibility, to cooperation, really looking at the people, how they behave, and about how you behave as a team leader, because they behave in a way that is a result of your behavior as a team leader. So that's the coaching aspect of it.
Yeah, great, thanks. I like to add one thing.
Yeah, I think you said that eloquent. There's one thing I'd like to add. It was very, very important. You know, I think you can tell a good leader by the way they ask questions. Yeah. And that's why we emphasize in Gemba core and the senior leader courses, the criticality of asking questions. We always talk about what, how, and what if. That's it. Never why, who asked you to do this, you know, questioning that kind of, always asking what, how, and what if. So what drove you to doing it this way? It would be an interesting perspective to have. How is this better than what we shared with you earlier? They'll tell you a different perspective. What if you did it this way? What would be the impact? They will tell you a different perspective. And I think those kinds of questions when you're at the Gemba provides tremendous insights and then credibility as you as a leader, because now they're thinking like, whoa, he's talking to me. He wants to know my opinion. And I think that's very valuable.
Yes,
Hi.
go ahead. Hi. Morning.
I have some experience with training people, and I really like the approach of yourself from Patagonia and DJ. But I want to ask the following. When the company is changing the strategy for training the people and they're moving on having all trainings on a platform or some internal academia, everything recorded, thinking that this will save time and resources for training, removing mentorship, and then introducing learning on the fly with the let's say a slogan or intention that the training time will be shortened and the efficiency of the training needs to be improved. The question is, when the company is having a strategy to utilize some platforms and recordings, removing mentors and forcing people to learn on the fly, what is the best way to achieve high efficiency in the training?
I'm not quite sure I understand it. What do you mean with platform? Or maybe you understand it, DJ.
If the company has its own platform with recordings, and employees can go there and they are expected. So they are expected to watch the recordings.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You take
me to
well,
answer that?
not at all in favor.
I'll tell you what, if you have,
go ahead.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. I'll tell you what, I've been in an organization and I'll put their name out there, Sands China in Macau. Okay. They are and when you think of Sands, it's a casino, and they generate most of the revenue for the organization. But they decided to do that with their training department, right? And when I walked in the door, I was like, you're making a huge mistake. They invested in this company to give them this platform to put everything online. And what I told them was, anything that's regulatory, absolutely. Anything that's regulatory, put it online. You need sexual harassment training, you need EEO training, you need some sort of, food safety certification that you pass through an exam, absolutely put it online. But anything that interfaces with processes and people, it needs to be trained. In other words, how do you resolve problems? You can put online a problem-solving methodology, but when it's down there at the Gemba and you're dealing with Susie who's doing something wrong, you're also dealing with a behavior. And that's something you don't learn in a online type of evolution. So there are forums and platforms that are good for certain types of training. But when we're talking about the technical aspects of what you do, it must always transcend from your leader to the worker. And then the worker eventually becomes the leader and does the same thing. And that's why TWI, in its method of getting ready to instruct and then instructing, is such a powerful methodology to ensure the transfer of knowledge and the application of the standard. And I think that is what the world is missing today. When I was in China and I saw people who had an engineering degree and they were about to touch a red wire, as an engineer, electrical engineer at that, I thought to myself, something went wrong. And then when I sat down afterwards, because I stopped the event, I said, where did you go? And he told me where he went. I said, how did you get it? I did this. And I said, so you never actually had something this big with that many volts going through it. You were dealing with little race cars and stuff. That voltage is going to do you, right? When I was working in the Marine Corps, I'm part of ATC, air traffic control, and I would have a lieutenant walk in and there's a big sign that says, Lieutenant, do not touch this. And he would touch it. And you would see him go, zoop, right back 10 feet. I think it's inherent that if you don't take people by the hand and teach them the right ways, you lose tremendous capability within your organization. Yeah. So I'm not in favor of those things for the technical aspects of business, but I am in favor for the soft skills, and regulatory things of the business. Yeah.
Yes.
So how to fill out a leave slip, right? That's perfect to put online.
Yeah, completely agree with it, DJ. I happened to meet
Jerome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeroen, I just want to add something. Between you and me, we agree that the teach, do, show kind of mentality is what we try to do, right?
Yes.
We teach something for 20 minutes. We do it with them for, let's say, 2 hours. And now you show me for the next 2 hours, right? If you use that same method in everything, you're not going to lose knowledge. You're not going to, you know, this knowledge management system that's somewhere in the archives, it's going to be resident. It's not going to be in an archive. Yeah.
Definitely.
Sorry to interrupt.
Gergana, with your question, you trigger us. We frequently get suppliers on the phone here that they want to sell their platform so that we can drop our trainings on it and so on and so forth. Well, we always try to get rid of them as fast as we can. Quite recently, I happened to talk to a few managers, let's put it that way, from a corporate company, and they did a Six Sigma course online. So internally online, via an internet kind of approach.
Wilko, go out.
And they were black belt. So they were showing to me, hey, you're a black belt. So, wow, where do you do it? Well, internally, online, with a program. So, oh, interesting. So where did you learn? Well, they couldn't express anything that is relevant to problem solving with Six Sigma. They just happened to read lines on the screen, clicking some buttons, and that's it. So I'm not sure if we answer your question now, Gergana, but anyhow, we are not in favor of portals, and they don't bring you anywhere.
Yes,
Embrace the
completely.
people, touch the people, go with the people, and go to the shop floor.
Exactly. But I'm struggling to convince the owners or the leaders that having the trainings on a platform and removing mentors or applying teach and do methodology will save will make their training system more efficient. So obviously it's not more efficient, is having more and more gaps.
Maybe I'm intrigued by the word efficient. You use that, your customer asks for efficiency. So I would like more about that. Why is the efficiency? Why? I mean, training always pays back if you do it the right way anyway. So it's kind of difficult to understand what they want then. Why do you want efficiency on training?
Hey, Gergana, can I suggest something?
Yes, always.
This symbol, by the way, means money, right? This also means money. It's all about money. They're trying to do a costing thing, right? But here's what I would recommend. Let's say you do a one-day training on food safety, and then they do a 2-hour or a one-day training online of food safety. And let's say you take these 4 people and these 4 people take it. You can prove to them that what you showed in one day, the knowledge retention compared to the knowledge retention here is 80% stronger. Because you do it the way, you know, we've sort of been talking over the years. Teach it and then go and do it so that it ingrains them. And then let them show you how they're so prideful when they do those things. Yeah. But when you do it off of an internet, you're not going to get that. I recently had my a local husband-wife. The wife is going through Six Sigma training, green belt, and she did everything online and then went to Tokyo to give her, it's like a dissertation, right? Give her results and a speech, and everybody went, yay! And I asked her one question. What did you improve and how much did you save? And it's one type of question. What did you improve and how much did that save? And she said, I improved this. I don't know what the savings is because it's not required anymore. These kinds of trainings don't require that. They just want to say you are this. And the reality of any kind of training is that it's a lack of skill or it's a lack of knowledge. That's why you go to training, right? It's not that you just understand it. So I always say, and you'll see it at the end of this slide presentation, Lean is more about, is not about understanding. It's about practical application. Yeah. It's about how to physically do it. So that's what I would encourage you to do. Hope I answered your question.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So looking at the time, if there's another question we can answer it, otherwise we can go to the very, very best way of training. You want to know what the best way to train is? I know Guido, Marjolein, Ralf, you're interested in that. The best way of training, going to Japan with DJ. So DJ,
hey, what's going on with this? Oh.
So
hey, listen. Yeah, we got a question from Wilko. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do that first.
Yeah, I made a competence matrix on the shop floor of the people, and we started training the people on based on their knowledge. So we put people with less knowledge with people with the most knowledge, and they work for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we evaluate what they learned, and then so their skill went up. And I trained them also in improvement methodology. But my problem then was they came up with so much ideas that I couldn't even do my own job, because I had so much ideas to cope with, and it overwhelmed me a bit. How do you cope with that? How do you manage it?
So you mean when operators come with so many ideas? Oh, sorry. DJ?
Yeah, I started with problem solving, learning them how to look at customer demands, what we want as a company, what quality is, and then there come so many problems that I even didn't know about, because they were working all day with the same problems over and over again, and then it overwhelmed me. But how do you put it in some kind of system so that I can solve it with them together? Sometimes it's too much. Then I even cannot do my own job.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying, or?
Yes, you unlocked the team potential. So they were sleeping, and once you demonstrate some tools to solve problems, they got awakened.
Yeah, that's the most problem. Yeah, that's what I meant. They were doing it for so long the same way, and then I'm learning them how to look at the production process in a different way, and then they're waking up, and then the problems came, and it was so much that I couldn't even cope with it, and my works got scrambled. So how do you manage that?
So I can only give a conceptual. I can only give a conceptual answer, because I know the situation over there. But I would be very, very happy if operators come with such many ideas and so on. So the first thing I normally do then is look if the authority line is well defined. Normally they need to require a kind of signature from the boss to do it. So get rid of that. Let's do them together and let's speed up. So if they know the requirements, the boundaries, the safety regulations, the customer demands, well, let's do it. So that's only a general answer, not specifically for this situation, but in general, you want that speed. You need that speed to be ahead of the competition. It just needs to be controlled. So I'm not sure what you mean with that. It can do my own work, but I would be on the shop floor the whole day with them to pick up every opportunity and transfer it into a process improvement. Then I don't know what the other job is, but can be more important than being on the shop floor.
I had the same idea. I thought not time to do the job anymore isn't a big part of your job, realizing improvements.
So I love the question. I think it's a great question. Thanks for asking it, Wilko. And here's the first thing. What I deduce from your sharing is that potentially there's the wrong structure in place for the teams that you're dealing with. Because the reason the TPS system works is because it's a myriad of 5 to 8 people that work under one team leader. There's not 20 to 1. There's not 10 to 1. There's only 5 to 8 people. And so that team leader makes a choice. That team leader makes a choice to resolve problems for 5 to 8 people only, not for an entire, for example, value stream, right? And so if you're in a value stream, you might have 5 or 10 of these teams, and each one of them should be solving problems. Now, when I say solving problems, I'm not talking about DMAIC, because DMAIC is a very structural problem-solving methodology. What I'm talking about is first understanding what kind of problem is it. Is it a just do it kind of problem that me and one other person can actually go and do it today and get it done? Or is it something that we have to dig into that we need to use the 8 Ps, right? The 8 steps to practical problem solving. And then if it's more project-based, it resides in your realm of what you were talking about, going for the black belt and the DMAIC. Now, how have I done this? Well, I've done it across the globe, but I want to show you one that I did in Singapore for a company called Swiber. And it's an offshore construction company. So they build the oil wells and stuff of that nature, and they lay piping for electricity to go to and all of that stuff, right? So I just want to share this with you. I brought it to their attention that they need to be able to, excuse me. I had a cadre of 6 people that were called the Continuous Swiber Improvement Team, CSI, right? And I can share some stuff with you on that. But what you're seeing on the screen right now is what we call the project prioritization plan. Yeah. Now, every project that came into us was broken down into either a Kaizen project, a Kaizen event, or a just do it event, right? So a Kaizen event could be a 2 to 3 day kind of event. A Kaizen project would last, 30 to 45 days, if upwards to 90 days. So you had to put a little bit more into it. But what we did is, and I'll go down to this slide, is we created a means to be able to capture all of these in an Excel, but because we answered the questions according to the strategy of the organization. So whatever we were talking about, for example, the COO said there's cost overruns on all of our projects. So I want you to take the 2 top projects and I want you to look at it. So we had a strategic importance perspective. We answered these 3 questions. They were weighted questions, and then they were multiplied by either 3 or 1, yes or no, in order to get the total value. Yeah. And so you did that for the impact of the voice of the customer or voice of employee. You did that for the project impact, what it would have on the business, as well as the people. Who supports it? Is leadership behind it? And of course, what is the ease of the project? And you could do all of that on, honestly, a pain gain chart. You could say, boom, it's this painful and it's this way over here. I can't touch it right now. It's going to become a project. Yeah. But if it's in that lower quadrant where it's very easy to do and gives you a benefit, that's a just do it type of thing. When it's very easy to do, but it gives you a huge benefit, probably an events-based type thing. But my point is, the people couldn't determine by themselves, so I built a tool with them to give to every leader of every division, and this happens to be the NOM and NSE divisions, so that they could assess each one of their own projects, give it to us, and then we would put it on the list. And here's another one, right? So it scored a 114 out of a possible 34. The next one scored, a possible 94 out of 134. And so what do? You just put that onto a sheet and you start to see where all of those reside, right? So you can see that the 94 is below that, somewhere all the way at almost to the end right here. Whereas the one that scored really high is up here, 114, yeah? So we know the next project to work on. What that does for you, Wilko, and for those that are struggling, is that it allows you to communicate with something as a sounding board to all the ideas coming in. You're saying we're working on them, the just do it's, we're making them happen. The events, the 2 to 3, maybe 4 day kind of events, we're going to start organizing that as well. But the projects, they need more resources. So we have to wait every quarter to determine which projects we're going to do. What I found out is most of the ones that come in end up being either events or just do it's. And so you can always just give the just do it's to someone and let them say, listen, Joe, Sue, you two go off and solve this for us today. And then I'm telling you, you're taking your problem solving capability within an organization from being 1-to-1 to being 1 to 5, 8 every single week, month. And that just multiplies. So that's how I've done it in other organizations, both Continental, Philips, Swiber, you name it. And it seems to work because it's not being judged by you, it's being judged by their own leaders, and it's being put into the prioritized list based on the way they've viewed it. Yeah. So it's a good thing to do it that way. And it gives you time now not to be able to assess that, not to organize every solution, right? And of course, you don't want to do that. You want to be the one that's holding the fire stick, sharing it. So they got a burning stick going and they're often doing something. That's the goal. Yeah. So that's what I would say to you.
Yeah,
I hope it
thank
helped.
you. Yeah, it was very helpful. It gives a structure.
I'll be more than glad to share that with you.
Yeah, I was giving a structure to prioritize and a structural way to problem solving. Thank you.
Yeah, just keep it floating. So it's not a way of taking all the ideas back, have a management meeting next month, and 2 months later you come back to it. It needs to float. It needs to be constantly there, close to the Gemba.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, can I add one more?
Yes.
Can I add one more point?
Yeah, of course.
Can I add one more point? That same company, Swiber, asked me, DJ, you need to go down to the Indian Ocean. You need to get on our platform because we've got this major problem that keeps happening and I want you to solve it. So I said, okay, what's the problem? So they told me what the problem is. And I started asking, so what is the initial point of that? What makes that happen? Well, we didn't have that on the boat. Okay, so you didn't have it on the boat. So I built a circle and then a circle inside the circle and a circle inside that circle. And then finally a bullseye inside the circle. I said, so you see the problem here. To be honest with you, it's very expensive to put me on an airplane to India, pick me up in a helicopter, fly me to the platform for me to be there for 2 days to solve this problem that I can do virtually with anybody that's there because they're the experts. I'm just taking them through a process. I said, but that's not the root of the problem. The root of the problem relies on the outer edge where it's pennies on the dollar. All you have to do is organize. And so what we did as a solution to that problem on the rig was we identified all critical parts to have 2 for every single vessel that went out to do their own part of the platform, laying the pipe, whatever it might be. So that way we didn't have to fly things all over expensively and send people to different locations. We managed it for only the ones that were unmanageable. We couldn't expect it. Yeah. And they were dumbfounded by like, wow, that saved us, $7.2 million just on this project alone. And so it has dividends when you can take it and break it down like they're teaching you, or like you already know, with, defining truly what is the problem. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Cool.
Let's go to the final part. Let's talk about the tour briefly and then wrap up. DJ.
You want me to share mine?
Yeah, the slides that you, this is the commercial part, right, ladies and gentlemen?
Right.
Now we try to sell something, but it's
I appreciate you guys sticking around for this. Yeah. Obviously, if you know those guys up in the top right-hand corner, you're in good company with me. So anyways, yeah, we're going to put together another TPS immersive experience here in Japan. It's going to happen 21 to 27 April 2024. The goal is that, whoever comes along on this tour is that they walk away on the final day with a 30 or 60-day plan of execution, things they're going to change, and we'll hold them accountable. Now, why do we say that? Because a lot of these tours, they bring people to Japan. They really spend a lot of times visiting, a lot of shrines, a lot of these things. We'll go to one and we'll go to some Japanese restaurants because you got to eat, right? But the goal is really get into the meat of TPS. And so when we do go to a shrine, there's meaning behind it that has influenced the Toyota production system and the Japanese culture of applying it. And we also want you to see it in how it's applied in regular businesses in the back offices, whether that be in procurement or whether that be in sales. We want you to have that kind of experience as well. And then we also want to make sure that, you get to go see Toyota. Now, Toyota's closed their factories, but we're under the understanding that in 2024, they're going to reopen the Toyota factory. But nonetheless, we can always go see Toyota suppliers. And so you will be able to see how TPS is taught from its foundations. You will be able to visit and get the core concepts and understand them, to where when you're walking around to all the other factories, you'll notice, oh, that's what that is. Oh, that's what that is. Okay, they're doing this. Fantastic. And then, of course, we're going to have several high executives that will talk to us from those organizations, answer our questions. Usually they take 30 minutes to 60 minutes to do that. And of course, we're going to see some weird things. Why is it that way? Jeroen can tell you that the bottom picture in the bottom right there is a company called Toto San Aqua. So everybody knows Toto in Japan. They make toiletries, bathroom stuff. But everybody in this factory, 98% of the workers are all handicapped. And so everything is no higher than 4.5 feet. So you can see the entire factory as long as you stand up. Yeah. And it's one of those kind of environments where you really get to get up and close, learn from asking good questions, find out why they did things certain ways, not from somebody who's done it and who's giving you it from his experience, but from the people that are doing it today. What has changed from 2 months ago to today? Why is it better now? Yeah. And of course, how do they handle the emotional and the behavioral issues that people have? And what's the best way to approach those type of things in your world? The reason for the 30 and 60 day action plans is because we want to offer you then one group coaching where everybody that comes on the tour will be in that group, and we can make it a 2 or 3 hour session. It's up to you guys. But the whole idea is to say, hey, how's it going? What are some of your challenges? And share that learning with everyone. And then what we'd like to do is offer for every individual a one session that we can talk one-on-one about your issue to allow you to move your particular challenge forward, that you're coming across. And we will do that in unison with the people at Patagonia, So I encourage you to come. I encourage you to tell other people about this. The experience is, I'm telling you, a life-changing one. You'll remember this forever. In fact, Jeroen, as we were starting today, before we brought all of you in, he was like, since coming back from Japan, DJ, I've shared something every single day about that tour with people. And that's the impact it has, and how you can see things a little bit differently. So, Jeroen, I'd like you to take over from there.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, we're at the end of the morning. I hope you have had a good experience. It's a lot of information in just, 1.5 hours. So we'll share the information. You will see the recording on our YouTube channel. So you can easily look it back in bits and pieces. We'll share the documentation. And I wish you a very good time in December with the Christmas and the New Year coming. Have a good period. Enjoy everything with your family, and see you next time.
Before you leave, just one last thing. Jeroen, can we do more of this in 2024 on different topics?
It depends on the public. If they want to, yeah, of course.
That's why I wanted you to say that. If you guys want to talk about something, bring it up. We'll definitely put something for you.
Yes, great.
All the best.
All the best. Bye-bye.